Castle, yeah. Yeah.
It is 5 o'clock on Tuesday, May 21st, and I call this meeting of the Beltrami County Board of Commissioners to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's nice that Commissioner Gosvig is with us, so we didn't have to do our timing thing. All right, at this time, I have no general comments to make. Is there any citizens that would like to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Commissioner Gosvig?
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion we approve the agenda with the following change. So we move item 7B, actually item 7G to item 10A, I had it right the first time. 7B to item 10A, the airport self-fueling, and item 7G to item 10B on the regular agenda for the natural resource management Beltrami electric easements. And with that, I'll make that a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So a motion's been made to approve the agenda with the changes from the consent agenda, 7B moving to 10A and 7G moving to 10B. Is there a second?
So be it. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the changes that 7B and 7G have been moved to the regular agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda as amended passes. Moving on to the regular agenda, item 8, jail construction documents approval. I think we'll let Tom tee that up.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have our architect on the line as well, but so she can stand for questions or whatnot, but let me just introduce the topic and then maybe we can turn it over to Danielle. So the county's architectural firm, Klein McCarthy Architects, is requesting board authorization to begin the construction documents phase on May 24th. As you might know, the contract that we hold with Klein McCarthy had identified various phases during this project that allowed us to stop work in the event we needed to. For example, we didn't have the funding or whatnot. Since all of that's been worked out, we believe strongly we can continue with the project now, but we do have in the contract these approval processes that we are going through just to make sure that, you know, we advance the contract in accordance with the contract terms. So essentially, we are asking that the design development, the construction documents phase be allowed to be moved forward in advance of the completion of the design development phase so we can maintain schedule and streamline the project moving forward. The impact as anticipated and agreed to in the contract is just over $1 million. And of course, that's subject to the guaranteed maximum price estimate. So, and that's changing as we do the design and such. So with your approval this evening, we would be able to continue the project as anticipated and certainly on schedule. And maybe with that, I'll turn it over to Danielle to see if she has anything else to add or maybe clarify.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, as Tom mentioned, and what's in the packet, the construction documents phase is slated to go through August 1st. And at that point, we'll be coming back to you to review the design development cost estimate, which is slated to be reviewed by the end of June. So we'll still have that period of time to review where the cost estimate's at and then get approval for the bidding purposes to get the documents out on the street.
Any questions for Danielle? I will just add that being, being on the Design and Operations Committee, it's been a treat to work with Danielle and her team. They've been excellent to work with. And I know that I can probably speak for Calandra. You've been great, Danielle, to work with, and we look forward to continuing the project with you.
Yeah.
With
thank
that,
you
I'll
for
entertain a motion to authorize Klein McCarthy Architects to begin the construction documents phase for the new jail pursuant to their contract.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you, guys. Have a good
All the
evening.
way up here for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right, let's move on to item 9, classification and compensation study contract approval.
All right, hello Commissioners. For this agenda item, I just want to go over 7 quick slides to just kind of talk about what we've already talked about, what we've accomplished so far as the work group, and then also what comes next for the compensation study. Oh, here we go. So in March, we met to discuss the growing concerns that our leadership team had with the high employee turnover. Data was pulled and confirmed kind of what we were already seeing and thinking as far as retention, recruitment, and wages. Here you can see at the top is just some stats that represents our organization structure. So we have the 430 employees roughly or about, and then we have 146 job titles. And then with that as well, we have 25 grades where employees are placed. And then in those grades, there's this 10 steps. The below data shows what we reviewed in a meeting we had a while back about why employees were leaving. So we do exit interviews, and one of the top reasons was for wages. And then also our turnover is 18% that's the average for the last 3 years. And just as a general guideline, over 10% is considered unhealthy. Then just kind of keeping it going here. So during that meeting that we had direction from the board to create a work group, and that work group was developed to create an RFP, so request for proposals for a classification and compensation study. We were going to solicit proposals, and then we were going to bring that contract back to you. So the work group consisted of Commissioner Anderson, Administrator Barry, Auditor Treasurer Treat, and then myself, the HR Director. So as a work group, we met at the end of March, where we discussed the current situation, the needs that we would require to do a successful classification and comp study, the process of what would need to take place, communication of what is needed in the RFP. We also talked with the management team to get their input on information, what they would like to see or what they are thinking would be helpful for the study. These are some of the items that we put into the RFP, just kind of going through quickly the purpose, the county background of our information for our current situation, the scope of services we're looking for, and then the selection criteria and proposed requirements. We sent out, we advertised the RFP, and we received 4 proposals. Each of us in the work group scored each proposal, and then we took the highest scored, we scored them on like their credentials, the company credentials, their approach, factors on what they would use to conduct a study, position, analysis process, and also explanation of the comps that would be pulled. The top 2 scored agencies were invited for interviews. The interviews consisted of a presentation from the agency, and then we also had them answer a set of questions that we had developed from the work group to ask them, and then some open dialogue. From there, Baker Tilly was selected as the higher scored applicant, I guess, for the RFP, their RFP. Their contract consists of 4 initial phases that kind of goes through the project itself, and then it's just a completion phase. So during this whole time, the agency will be working with the department heads and employees to get input gathering information, doing all the data poll, as well as just communicating what's going on in the process, where we're at, and just kind of keep that information out there so everyone can kind of stay up to date on where we are and what's all needed. Going on. The next steps. We are looking at board's approval tonight for the contract with Baker Tilly. So we can get started on phase one. We're also requesting a moratorium on any current position analysis questionnaires as they come through, except for any budget enhancement requests. So as we get into the budget cycle this season, there might be new positions that come through. There might be positions that are funded by grants that come through. So we didn't want to cut that off completely, but we did want to make sure that any positions that are currently here, they'll be going through the compensation, the classification and comp study process. So we shouldn't have any outside ones from that. So with that, that's all I have for you to kind of go over what we had and just presenting approval for that contract and then that moratorium.
Any questions for Ann this time?
Mr. Chair.
Jim?
Where's the money coming from?
To do the classification and
Yes.
compensation study?
Yep.
So there were funds, and Tom might be able to elaborate a little bit more on this. I'll let
Yeah,
you handle
I
that
can.
one.
So the county has been setting some funds aside, anticipating that this project was needed for some time, and those funds have been earmarked in a separate HR contingency fund that's inside the budget currently.
And the estimated cost is 56,500. Is that the lowest that came back from the other people that submitted their proposals?
You want to take that? or you
Yeah,
want
go
me to?
ahead.
Yeah, there, of the four proposals, that's right in the ballpark. There were,
Okay.
there was some that were slightly higher and some that were slightly lower. We were actually surprised at how compressed the figures were for the study itself. But
Okay.
because this was a qualifications-based approach, we didn't really look at the price. We looked at the qualifications of the
Okay.
firms. But they're all within, I want to say, $20,000 or so. Now, keep in mind that those funds are just to do the study. And then there's the funds that are wholly separate to implement the findings of the study. And those are conversations that we'll need to have with the board in the future.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question is, do we have the money for the implementation? Or are we just spending this money and then going to decide, well, no, we can't implement because we don't have the money? I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it seem like a waste of money, so.
And I think, I think that being on the committee, that's one of the questions that I asked too, and we,
Mhm.
you know, that just goes hand in hand. Why do the study unless you're going to implement? And, that's a given, so.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
I can probably help you maybe get some peace of mind of that, because we wouldn't want you to approve a study we couldn't implement,
Okay.
right? And the worst thing we could do to the staff is do the study and then not have funds to implement.
Yeah.
So since I joined the county 3.5 years ago, I've recognized this as a major challenge for the county and started working with the auditor and various board members at that time to start making a contingency fund to address this issue. And so we weren't ready to initiate this project until we felt that there were what we believed to be an estimated amount of sufficient funds to implement the project. We believe we might be there to implement January 1st of next year, provided that the board approves sort of the third phase of the funding portion of this in this next budget cycle. Of course, that budget cycle for us is going to start June or so. And then we'll bring the preliminary budget to you in September, and then the final budget gets approved in December. So assuming all of that happens, and we maintain the course that we've been on for a few years, we believe that we'll be in a position to implement the findings of the study. Now, I have to caveat that because we don't know what the findings are. So if the findings come out to be something that the county can't support, we'll have to maybe talk about phasing in the project, or we might have to talk about other alternatives. But we believe, based upon what we've done in the background, that we're probably in a pretty good position to implement the project findings, maybe by January with all those things, having been said.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm gonna try to limit my questions because this burger is really smelling good, so, thank you.
At this time, I entertain a motion to approve classification and compensation study contract with Baker Tilly and to implement a moratorium on position analysis questionnaires outside of the budget enhancement process until the study has been completed.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second,
Is there further discussion?
Mr. Chair, just quickly,
Mhm.
I would like to say that I do think overall this is a good idea. We're definitely overdue. Baker Tilly is one of the best in the business to help us conduct this. But I do want to just go on record and say that I would hate for us to do this and then we don't have the money to pay the staff. So it is with some reservation and with some mixed feelings, but I will be a yes vote on this.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 10A, which is the approval of a resolution to establish a self-help aircraft fueling system at Bemidji Regional Airport.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just to quickly reiterate my comments from earlier, they're mostly environmental. I understand the point about Grass Lake being south and the water flowing north, so that's helpful to know. However, there's still the issue of the shallow wellheads at the airport and Bemidji's water supply being right there and 10,000 gallons of fuel right there. And with the no risk mitigation plan currently for spillage, I'm just having a hard time supporting this right now. I think it's been rushed. At the council meeting last night, they agreed to table this till their June meeting, giving the airport authority time to come back with some more details, do some more research. And so I would be interested in seeing that information as well before we decide on this.
I will just say that from what I heard and from what I understand being on the airport authority, that two things. Number one, underground fuel tanks are not a very good idea. And so through this process of removing a 12,000 gallon underground tank where you can't see if there's a leak to an above ground 10,000 gallon where we can see if there's a leak, I think that's a good thing. And then furthermore, I think that with the what I'm hearing from the authorities, that they're not moving forward unless they did get approval from the city. At this point, I believe that it's kind of almost in the city engineer's hands. And I trust Sam to do the right thing. I see no reason to belabor this on our part. The city can do their part if they want. That's what I have to say.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the airport self-fueling resolution of support. And if we need further discussion after, we may get a motion in a second.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to table the motion until the second meeting in June.
Okay. The motion to table, is there a second on a motion to table?
Mr. Chair, for the sake of discussion, I'll second that motion.
It's not a discussion item. So you're just saying okay, so there's a second on the table. We'll vote. All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion fails.
Back to my original
Back-
motion. Is
yeah.
there a second?
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
I have a question. How many low income folks is this going to help? Perhaps someone from the airport authority or anybody that's willing. I mean, the county's in the business of helping low income folks and lower middle class folks. How does this benefit them?
Mr. Canor,
If I may, John Kennard, Chairman of the Airport Authority. we all know people that fly airplanes or fly in airplanes are not going to be low income individuals. That's just the nature of the beast. What the airport serves as, and people flying into the airport serve as spurs of economic development. Most of the businesses that come here fly into the airport. A lot of people, most companies, their first impression of a community is their airport. So it's going to be an indirect benefit to them because it's going to help spur and start businesses to get started, going to create interest in the community and create other opportunities then that will be employing other people and helping the community. So it's an indirect benefit. It's not something I can put a pen and pencil to and give you a hard number.
So, Mr. Chair, what I'm hearing is that this is a convenience thing.
Let me take a step back if I may, sir. The airport authority is tasked to be the stewards of the airport for the people that own it, the community, and for the services that it provides to its users. We believe that this fuel system accomplishes both of those tasks. First of all, it's obvious that it provides a service that brings people to the community that have resources that may invest into the community. We also believe that it actually protects the environment because, like the chair said, we're taking out a 12,000 gallon underground tank, replacing it with a 10,000 gallon above ground tank that's double walled and barricaded. And in the fueling process, as Karen explained earlier, instead of going from a storage tank to a truck to an airplane, we're going to go from a storage tank to an airplane. You're removing one of the transfers of fuel, which is an opportunity for an accident to happen. So it's our premise that this is actually good on every account and every level that you look at.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair. So just kind of curious to know what kind of conversation or discussions were had at the airport authority, for the authority to get to this point to come to the board. So just kind of, if there's some background to help me get a better understanding, that'd be helpful.
Sure, absolutely. And this gets a little convoluted, so stay with me. Of course, everything goes through the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And when they looked at the whole situation, because we're unique, the property itself is owned by the county and the city. The tank and fueling system is owned by the authority. And although they refuse to give us anything in writing, they have said you need to have support of the owners of the property as well as the owners of the piece of equipment. So it's on legal counsel's advice, although again, we have nothing in writing from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, that we also get the support of both the county and the city.
So at the authority level, there's a consensus of support to move forward with this, both members from the county and
Yes.
the city?
Right, so if you can imagine that with the self-help fueling system, that the people that'll come and use that and buy the gas from us, the return on the investment from the airport's part, which is only 2.5% or $8,700, that return on investment is returned pretty quickly.
Our guesstimate, looking at fuel sales and expected use, we're probably looking at someplace in that 12 to 15,000 gallon a year range.
So the city tabled this situation last night
Unanimous.
by unanimous.
And
And you need some support from both governmental bodies for them to pursue this. So I mean, like, it sounds like, the county board is gonna pass this. So then what kind of, how does this help this situation securing the funding?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yep.
we've been studying this for quite some time with the airport authority. The members on the airport authority at the city and the county have both been in favor of this. And at this point, my feeling is that, if we pass it here tonight, it still has to go through their, whatever you want to call it, approval, getting them satisfied at the city level. So it's just, instead of us not approving it and them approving it then at the next meeting and then us having to wait and approve it at the following meeting after they've approved it. Let's just get it done and let them approve it once they've met their satisfaction. I believe from what Kyle and after the city council meeting last night, I think Kyle brought more information as well as Karen and John here to the table for us to, put us at ease. At least my, any questions that I heard got answered pretty well to make sure that there will be extensive safety concerns and things taken care of prior to turning the switch on.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have the same knowledge, because I'm not haven't been part of the airport authority. So, I mean, so the city's concerns, they don't really align with our concerns. We don't have any concerns at all. We just want to be supportive of the authority and just.
I have concerns about the city's water supply
Okay.
and the lack of a spillage risk mitigation plan. That's my hang up. And I could be convinced to vote for this at the June meeting if they come back with additional information.
And that was my hope as well, is like, tonight was the first time seeing this and I don't. Like I mentioned, I'm not a pilot, so I mean, I'd like to have some conversations and ask questions to get a better understanding. I mean, it's hard for me to shoot from the hip and approve something. So I mean, it's not that I don't want to. I just want to do my due diligence.
Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you could come up to the podium. I thought I heard you say that before anything would go into effect, the spillage mitigation plan would have to be in place.
Yes, that's what the city engineer indicated was his thought was before we put it into service, we would have that SPCC, as he calls it, as they call it, put into place and approved by him. So we were working forward under that understanding. Last night, the city council said they would like to see that SPCC before they approve, so.
Is there some particular council member of the 7 of them that's an expert on that when they get this plan, that they can read that and go, oh, okay, I'm satisfied?
I guess I can't say I know their backgrounds, but
You know that every local elected body relies on their civil engineer.
Correct, and that's why. And you're correct, Commissioner Gould. And so my understanding is that once the engineer is satisfied, that we should be good to go. And that's the goal right now, is to satisfy the city engineer, correct?
that was my understanding, yes.
That's my understanding too. So why would we take this up again when the city can be the final arbitrator of it with the city engineer? That way we're done with it.
And my question is both parties have to agree before this goes into effect,
Right.
correct?
Right.
And so my feeling is we've had two commissioners that have been involved in great detail with this, and they're satisfied with it. I have not sat on the committee, but from what I'm hearing, I would give my approval is to go with it. And if the city keeps saying that there's something not safe about it, they don't have to approve it.
Absolutely right.
So.
Any other discussion? Call the question. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. You will
Thank
get
you.
your resolution and Diane will get that typed up and get that to you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Moving on to items 10B, which is the natural resource management approval of 3 Beltrami electric utility easements, which Commissioner Gosvig is on the board, and so he's going to elect to recuse himself. And so that's why that's been pulled from the agenda. Is there any questions about that other than that?
Mr. Chair, just out of curiosity, what if it was a split vote? I said, what if it was a split vote?
Well, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, and knowing that Commissioner Gosvig is abstaining, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That's very good. Moving on to any additional items before we move into commissioners' reports? Tim?
Um, for the legislative lobbying commissioner reports, I will be attending the, AMC set up a meeting between DHS and tribal leaders at their, MIAC meeting in Morton, so I'll be attending that, tomorrow, talking over, MIFA, ICWA, and other, child welfare, conversation, so that's where I'll be at next few days. Thank you.
Richard?
Just the fact that, with our hazardous, waste management, joint powers group, one of the good things I heard is that, we're operating within the funds that we have, and this will be the second year that we're not raising the cost of that.
Awesome. Okay. Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We held our joint airport zoning board meeting, or not board meeting, but public hearing, and had a really good participation from the community. A lot of good questions about the plan that we have for the custom airport zoning. And I think everybody went away pretty pleasantly surprised that we were making some common sense changes there. Had my HRDC meeting, had my planning commission meeting last night, had a couple plats that got approved. Seems like almost every variance request has been in my district. So it's been convenient for me to be on that board to see some of my constituents coming in. Had that last night, and then right after that, I had the fair board meeting last night. Things are looking very well for the fair for this year. Donations are coming in from sponsors, and lots of there were like 16 brand new applicants for the 4-H program, and lots of good successes coming from the fair. And then we had our solid waste committee meeting this morning, and looking at what we can do. We're hoping to be able to get things going with the city and a piece of property that's over north of the lagoon, over by Albany Communications, kind of across from the bait and tackle store up there on Fern Street, as a possible spot for a recycling location, because of the location by Dale's, our Northdale Oil is, that road is going to be redone, and we're going to need to get rid of that. And then with the old fair property where we're behind Target there, we want to get rid of both of those sites and have a compactor site, hopefully on that city property over on Fern Street. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Joe? Pass. All right. Moving on. Next meeting will be a work meeting on June 4th at 3 p.m. here, followed up by a 5 o'clock board meeting. Just a reminder to folks that on June 18th, following the board meeting, there will be the Board of Equalization at 6 p.m. So if you have go, yeah.
I just one thing that I thought
go
about,
ahead.
Mr. Chair, there are some outstanding chat about
Yep.
deals of that Commissioner Sumner is not wanting to do. So I wonder if we could ask, there's 3 of them for the remainder of the year: July 2nd, September 17th, and December 3rd. Wonder if Administrator Barry would be interested in doing those 3 chat about sessions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gosvick. We had talked about that earlier, kind of behind the scenes, and what we had for a suggestion, both Commissioner Carlson and Commissioner Anderson had indicated they'd be interested in doing one, and so we kind of thought the 3 of us would split them.
Okay.
If that's all right. So what I have right now is that Commissioner Carlson would take the July 2nd, then I would take the September 17th, and then Commissioner Anderson would take the December 3rd date, if that's acceptable to you all.
Acceptable?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Unless you want to do one, Joe. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Anything else before we adjourn? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.